On today's show, Jabari Smith Jr.'s Houston Rockets season in review. How did he fare in his second NBA season, the first under new head coach Ime Udoka? Expectations coming into year two, overall growth, and questions that we still have for Jabari moving forward, as well as one game, one play, and one number that stood out from his season. It's all coming up on today's Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's up and welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and credentialed media member. I'm also the host of Locked On NBA Mondays. Be sure to follow along wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Rockets, and that's the best way you can help our show out is to comment anything below on the YouTube episodes, or if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, a 5-star review helps us out a ton. Now, today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. This fast-paced game lets you team up with friends for tournaments to unlock awesome prizes like unique stickers for trading, cool playing pieces, and hilarious emojis for taunting your friends. So download Monopoly Go now free on the App Store or Google Play Store. And as always, thank you so much for making Locked On Rockets part of your day every single day, whether it's on your way to work, on your lunch break, in the gym. Thank you for being an everydayer. Joining us now is your weekly co-host, NBA draft enthusiast, and diehard Houston Rockets fan, Madison Moore. You can track down on Twitter at MadManly. He's here to break down Jabari Smith Jr.'s season as we look back and reflect on Jabari's second NBA season, some of the areas in his game that he's grown considerably, other areas that still need some improvement, some of the questions that we have for Jabari Smith Jr. moving forward. And honestly, Madison, coming into year two here for Jabari, you know, he was a guy that wasn't as exposed to as much of, we'll call it the Silas tax as maybe Jalen and Sengun were. So, you know, only 1 year under Steven Silas, but it was a pretty rough rookie year, right? Like, I mean, I think collectively Rockets fans walked away pretty disappointed after his rookie season, right? A guy that was largely billed as like the number one, prospect coming out of that draft. And then at the last second, little bait and switch from Orlando, and Paolo Banchero goes number one overall. Jabari falls to the Rockets, and a bit of an underwhelming rookie season, right? Wasn't ready to be kind of the 3-and-D monster that we thought he would be right out of the gate. Some of that had to do with how he was utilized his rookie year, but then, you have the offseason hire Ime Udoka. Suddenly there's a lot of optimism, a lot of excitement about what Ime is going to be able to do, especially with a guy like Jabari who prides himself on his defense, how he's going to, make him better on that side of the basketball, but different ways to get creative with him and to improve the defense using Jabari, as well as just, we got that first glimpse, right, at Summer League with him participating in his second Summer League, and he went out there and he was a monster for the couple Summer League games that we saw him in, and I think that was kind of a taste of like, man, can he take like that next step this next season? He didn't take like a monster step, I don't think, but there was still quality improvement, I want to say, across the board for Jabari here in year two.
Yeah, I'm actually very satisfied and very encouraged by Jabari's improvement. Let's just be honest. Last year, Jabari wasn't really an NBA player or a quality NBA player. He was starting on this team, and really nothing really went right for him. He started off with the ankle injuries that got him off to a slow start. And the thing that he was built to be able to do is 3-and-D at the very least. And he was not able to do either one of those at a high level last year. Most disappointing is the 30% from three in the first season. But this year, Jabari kind of improved in every facet of his game. And what I would say, not a leap, but a significant amount. And so much so that he went from a guy that probably you wouldn't really want on a winning team to play bench minutes to a guy who became an average starter this year. I wouldn't say that he was too much above average, but he was an average starter. He had his ups and downs as any young player. But to me, I think this is what people expected out of him his rookie year. A guy who could come in, knock down some shots, be a really good release valve, and, show some flashes on defense at moments. And I think this is another caution, I think, for Rockets fans, and not for Jabari, but for fans in general, with with hype and being patient with young players, because development, you never really know how far a guy is until he enters the league and sees where he is and what he needs to improve on for him to get that. And so, I think people expected more out of Jabari. That was a bit unfair just because he was the number 3 pick. He was picked as the number 3 pick for his skill set and his upside, but we have to give him time to reach that said upside. And I think this year was an excellent step in the right direction. And if he can improve incrementally like he did like this in the next 3-4 years, we will have the all-star, the number 3 pick that was advertised. And so all in all, I thought this year was a really good year, really good solid year of development. And he played effective minutes on a winning team.
When you look across the board, right, statistically, aside from that monumental jump from 30% 3-point shooting to about 36.5 this season, which is a huge, that is probably the most important factor in who Jabari Smith Jr. is as a player. The fact that he got to be, roughly about league average 3-point shooting, and hopefully that number continues to trend upward. Now, one thing that I will say about the 3-point shooting, would have liked to see more volume on the 3-point attempts this past season. It didn't jump up considerably. He was at 5 attempts a game his rookie year, 5 attempts a game again this year. But the fact that he's able to do the 5 attempts a game per on volume and get to a place where he's shooting consistently, right, being treated as an outside threat to where you have a lot of confidence that Jabari is going to hit those shots when the defense gives them up. That helps a ton. For me, I think that with Jabari, again, you look at the stats across the board, the scoring didn't take a crazy uptick. The rebounding didn't have a crazy uptick. The shots per game didn't go up. The minutes per game, everything's kind of about the same, but you felt his impact so much more this season. I think a big part of that was, again, he just looks a little bit more calm this past year, right? A little bit more like he understands things, right? The game, I kind of hate this expression, right, where things really kind of slowed down for him a little bit this year. And I like how you said that this was the level of play that we thought we were going to get his rookie year. This kind of felt like Jabari and Tari's rookie seasons a little bit, right? New head coach, you only had the year 1 under Silas. You kind of ball it up and throw it away. It's harder to do that with Jalen and Sengun because they had 2 years in the league already. So you were kind of like, all right, we got a good glimpse at who these guys are, what they can do a little bit, even though it was not in the best of systems. With Jabari, it's almost like that first year, it was so underwhelming. It's like, all right, let's just ball that one up, throw it out. Let's see what you're really made of. And this felt like the Jabari that we thought we were going to get with that top pick in the draft. For me, I was really just impressed with his defense, right? Because that was the area that we thought we were getting this really versatile 3-and-D kind of wing, jumbo sized, fast enough to guard on the perimeter, lengthy enough to guard bigger guys on the interior a little bit. And while he's still maybe a ways away from being an all NBA caliber defender, I definitely thought he got significantly better as a defensive piece. Pretty much early on this season, you could tell there was a difference very early in how Jabari was able to guard, especially just opposing wing players, right? Guys that were blowing by him his rookie year, and he was locking up guys this season.
Yeah, I think he definitely flashed more on the perimeter, especially there's some really key sequences against star players where I think he really flashed on the perimeter. But I actually think his defense improved most in his rotations. And I think it took a heavy hit like the first 10 to 15 games of the season where Jabari was really struggling to be in the right position at the right time, with Alperen Sengun being limited as a rotational defender to protect the paint. We really are asking more of Jabari Smith to take on that mantle as a backline defender and kind of cover up for Alp's deficiencies, because his potential as as an all defensive player is what he is advertised as. That's what his potential to be. He's just quite not there yet. And so a lot of times you find yourself giving Alp passes while being harder on Jabari because we know what he's capable of. And you can see that happening earlier when Jalen and Jabari in the starting lineup were just a step behind at processing defensively. It seems like Jalen caught up quicker than Jabari. He took a bit longer, but he eventually got there, and we got to see consistent stretches of very, very quality D. And it was the kind of thing that it wasn't overwhelming. Like someone like Amin Thompson's defense is just in your face and overwhelming, but that's not the type of defender that Jabari Smith is. He is a solid, no risk solid defender. And we start to see those flashes and that consistency rise. And I think as he adds more strength, adds more strength and grows into his body, it's only going to go up from here.
Coming up, we're going to get into some of the other areas of growth that we saw from Jabari this season, some of the bigger questions that we have about his role in this team and who he is as a player moving forward, as well as we're going to get to our one game, one play, one number from Jabari's season. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA, which makes getting playoff tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets towards tip-off. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. Look, I don't know about you, my least favorite thing when I'm trying to buy tickets to anything, could be a sporting event, could be a concert, whatever it is. You go through the whole process, and then at the very, very end, they try to jump you with all these last-minute fees, digital handling fee, ticket service fee, all this stuff, right? You end up paying more in fees than you do for the actual tickets. You don't have to worry about that with Game Time. They give you their all-in price right up front, so you know exactly how much money you're about to spend on these tickets. Again, they are obsessed with getting you a great deal on tickets, so take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast, home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. Now, Madison, one of the things about this past season that I think is so interesting is I remember being told, asking around, trying to get a feel for what Ime Udoka wanted to achieve with this team this past season. I remember hearing that he was really excited about Jabari's potential as a small ball five. And obviously we saw that in spurts throughout the season. Largely, I think, though, that Jeff Green kind of, anchored and occupied that small ball five role. I think that in a perfect world, there would have been, we might have had maybe more opportunity to see Jabari play the small ball five situationally. And maybe Jeff would have been, in the mix as like more on the wing as opposed to their straight up backup five had Jock Landale actually been serviceable. But because of different things like rotation crunches, minutes, whatever. We just didn't really get to see a healthy dose of it until the end of the year when Alperen and Sengun actually went down due to injury, and then Jabari slid over and became the starting five full-time. And I still wonder at this point, I'm curious your thoughts, does it feel like Jabari's future is more as a 4-5 tweener or as a true, you're just going to be on the wing for the most of your career? Is he more of a wing, or is he more a guy that you think as time progresses is going to be better suited to be a 4-5 tweener or a small ball five full-time, if that?
Yeah, I've been on the record since I evaluated him as the prospect that he is better suited as a 4-5 tweener, scaling up to the five and really versatile minutes. And that is where his advantage is at. A lot of guys think since you can shoot, since you have a bit of skill and ball handling, that means you're a guard. But you don't want him to use those guard skills against other guards, like other wing players who actually guard those types of players anymore. You want to put that skill set against centers and make them come out and defend on the perimeter while he can still hold his own defensively on the other end. And that is where his versatility comes in. That's where his mismatch really comes in. And I think he really is more suited as a five in death lineups, right? And I think him at the five this year was kind of one of the silver linings we got from the season, silver linings we got from Alp's injury. Yes, Alp went down, but we got to see Jabari in a different type of role. And that not only led to him anchoring the defense more and being more of a rotation guy, which we know that'll help him in the long term, which he needs also to play with Alp because Alp needs that help. But also we got to see the pick and pop finally. You know what I mean? We got to see more involvement of Jabari in the initial actions. And right now he's just been the ultimate release.
Spot up and
spot up. Yes, he's a release valve. Yeah. He's primarily been used as a release valve as he's developing his skills. But now he got to expound sound on his skills as a guy in the middle of the court. And not only was he in the pop, but he was in the short roll hitting mid ranges. I think he offers a lot of versatility as a pick and pop and pick and roll guy, especially making plays out of the mid range. And that part of his offensive versatility is very important because this is a number 3 pick. This guy has superstar potential. We just need to give him the time and the development for that. He was one of the youngest players in his draft. Although a lot of his peers are a bit ahead of him, that doesn't mean he can't catch up to those guys. And we need to still encourage that offensive development, although in the context of the offense. And with Alp being out, we got to see a lot more of what Jabari could do. And he did flash a lot of what he would look like as a primary guy, as well as the ultimate release valve.
You know, I'm torn on it, right? Because it's sitting here trying to figure out, like, if you were building a team around Jabari, right? Like, how would you highlight his strengths, right? And that's kind of where we're at. Is, you know, this year it was about, you know, very early on, the coaching staff recognized, you know, Alperen Sengun as the guy who was kind of ready to shoulder a lot of the workload alongside Fred VanVleet, obviously. But, you know, Ime Udoka and company leaning on him heavily, right? You know, running the ball through him, a lot of the offensive actions involving him. And I just think about, for Jabari, trying to think, is he ever going to be the guy that you want to give the ball to and just let him go to work on the perimeter? Or is he the guy that is going to need guys to set the table for him, right? Is he best when he's operating? You know, is he best when he's facing up, 15 to 18 feet and operating out of the mid range? Is he best, catching and attacking off the catch on the perimeter and being able to take, a quick one dribble pull up into his mid range? Or, again, spacing the defense and stretching things out to the 3-point line? I feel like I know that Jabari, I feel like Jabari is at his best when he's in the mid-range, when he's operating, whether he's facing up, when he's posting up, when he's got smaller guys on his back, mismatches like that. But it just feels like those opportunities were so few and far between, because when you have an Alperen Sengun that you want to take advantage of and make sure he gets his post-ups and run the offense through him, and, Jalen's got to eat, Fred's got to eat. Like, oftentimes Jabari felt like not necessarily an afterthought in the offense, but just that there wasn't enough of the offense that was able to be geared towards his strengths.
Yeah, and that's what comes in when we talk about what's best for the team, right? And what's best for the team is for Jabari to be an ultimate release valve and support the other players on his team with other skill sets like that. Although Jabari has a lot of upside in shot creation in the mid post, right now, he's not polished enough to do that at a high enough level to generate consistent buckets over and over again. So right now, he has to develop in these other areas. And once he perfects the ultimate release valve, once he's, getting 20, 25 points a night off that of just catch and shoot, then you establish that, hey, I can do the easy things at a very high level. Now we can give you more. Right. And that's not to say that he'll never get to we don't want him to get to his mid-range bag, because that's where he's going to become a superstar, is when he starts getting his shot creation out of the mid-range, which I do think he flashed a decent amount this year, much more than last year. He has some excellent plays, and I think he has the type of footwork and operation and skill set that he could be a mid-post assassin, similar to Kawhi Leonard, to Kobe Bryant, the way Kobe operated out of the mid-post. I'm just talking about shot creation out of the mid-post. These are some of the guys and some of the moves that they do out of the mid-post. Jabari can do those things. He just has to excel at the easy things first before we give him more, because there's other mouths to feed and other guys are better at shot creation at the moment.
You gave me two. You gave me Kawhi. You gave me Kobe. And
yes, I did.
I hear those comps, and because they, the way that those guys operate out of the mid range.
Hold on. They're mid-post comps. Sorry, mid-post comps.
Mid-post comps. Yeah, no,
comps.
Not just player comps. I hear you. Mid-post comps. But even then, I think that one of the things that those guys had, right, is their ability, their threat to drive the ball, to put the ball on the floor, to create out of the mid-post, is what also helps them with just their ability to be so effective in that area of the floor. Because, whoever's guarding that player has to be worried not only that they're going to elevate from where they are, but that they could put the ball on the deck, drive, draw contact, whatever, create for a teammate. There's a lot of different things that go into kind of their scoring gravity. I'm going to throw you this wild comp, and I can't not see it. LaMarcus Aldridge Think about
That's not
LaMarcus
wild.
Aldridge. Like it's wild because again, we think of Jabari as this wing type player, right? But think about how effective LaMarcus Aldridge was from the mid range. It felt like, dude, think about the few years there where like Dame and LaMarcus Aldridge on the Blazers tormented the Rockets. It felt like Aldridge couldn't miss. He would catch the ball and immediately like spin into that over the shoulder, whatever, fall away 15 to 17 foot or whatever, baseline turnarounds, all that. I feel like that is almost the type of like offensive package that Jabari could have. And I just don't know if he's ever going to get to a place where like his handle or his ability to put the ball on the floor is at the same level as a couple of those other guys that you mentioned to be able to be like a super, a face up mid post assassin, if you will.
Yeah, no, I was not talking about a face-up game at all. So,
Okay.
But I was not. I was talking about that because they were post-up players.
Yeah.
Obviously, they were mid-post. That's what the post is post-up. So, they're not face-up. So, yes, I agree that LaMarcus Aldridge is also an incredible comp and also displayed a lot of great footwork. And it's that operation of the footwork that is what gets you open, not the threat of the three at all. Not the three, the threat of the drive. It is the counters out of your footwork, the way you set guys up for step throughs, for over the shoulder fakes, mid post spins, those type of things get you into advantageous situations where then you can finish with your length over the top, and you beat people on the margins because he's so tall at 6'10". I just think a lot of I use those guys, but LaMarcus Aldridge is a cooler take, and I think it fits his position better. I think LaMarcus is a great cop for a lot of how his offense will evolve. And
yeah, I'm just at a point where coming into some of it was, we looked at Jabari, and I remember like the comps being like, oh, he's like 6'10" Clay, and like that doesn't look like the comp anymore.
Oh no, I hated that.
Yeah, and so I just it's tough. It's tough to know what Jabari is or what he can be because there's still so much left. Like it feels like we barely scratched the surface. Again, we talked about it in segment 1. This kind of feeling like more or less his rookie year after what was a really bad actual rookie year, and then coming in playing in a much different system with Ime Udoka, playing winning basketball, all that. I still very much see him as an elite play finisher. We've talked about, we've used that term a lot this episode as him being a play finisher. I just don't know if he's ever going to be the guy that you give the ball to and just say, clear out, let him go to work kind of thing, or if he's going to be the guy that can be that elite play finisher.
Yeah, I think all of that stuff is in the cards, and that's what's excited. But I think the first thing is first. You have to become an elite play finisher first before we give you all this other stuff in development, right? All these shot creation reps. But I think there is room in the offense for him to get a look or two. And I think towards the end of the season, with the injuries, he showed a bit more of what he can do. We just need it more at a more consistent level. And although Jabari did improve last year, he was just an average starter, right? An average offensive player. He wasn't doing anything that warranted him to get a lot of looks and get those type of things. But I would like to see more involvement and more plays drawn up for him. And not in the mid post, but as catch up shoot down screen opportunities where he can flash up and take a three at the top of the key. They used to run a lot of really sneaky good stuff for Kevin Love in Minnesota when he was in Minnesota to get him freed up for threes. I'd like to see that incorporated in the offense. Even that type of movement for mid-range shots, easy mid-range shots when we need a bucket. Those shots are becoming more and more like a staple of Jabari's offense. This year, I think he added that one dribble turnaround in the mid post on the baseline. And he was pretty good at it and very effective at that shot. I think he can continue to work on that stuff. And we can draw up some easy stuff where he can get to that type of stuff as he begins to work more on his other offensive game.
What's funny, when you consider a lot of guys who are maybe like, high mobility, like movement shooters, if you will, I feel like oftentimes these guys are guys that can, move and relocate really quickly. And they've got oftentimes really quick releases, right? Because, that's part of being able to, have to, shoot on the move. But at the same time, I feel like Jabari can be a version of a movement shooter because his shot and like the release point is so unstoppable, right? It's basically unguardable, so he can be a movement shooter and doesn't necessarily have to rely on hugging a screen super tight, or like cutting curling off and making sure he's in the right spot at the exact right moment. Just catch the ball, elevate into your natural release point, and it's pretty much game over. We saw him do that as a zone buster in the mid-range this season. I'm with you. I'd like to see him be used in some more creative ways, especially on the perimeter. Get him some catch and shoot opportunities. You're gonna have to send me some of the Kevin Love plays. I'm very curious to see what you're talking about as far as different ways that he could be utilized. But
yeah. Just so you say, I'll plug it. But I did do a video of this in the draft, and I have actual clips of the Kevin Love plays. So if you want to see it, it's on YouTube.
There we go.
I clipped it up in a Jabari Smith development tape.
We're going to break it out. We're going to dust it off. We're going to dust off the film a little bit later on. But coming up, we're going to get into our one game, one play, one number from Jabari's season, as well as his overall season grade. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for timed tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock, and there's so much to get your hands on. Unique stickers that you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel around the boards with, hilarious emojis for taunting your friends when you smash their buildings or when you heist their vaults full of riches. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and different challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot pachinko machine. And there's always new timed events to help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go, so get off the bench and go download it now free on the Google Play Store or the App Store. Again, go download Monopoly Go for free on the Google Play Store or the App Store. And final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. All right, we are down to our one play, one game, one number for Jabari Smith Jr. season. Madison, go ahead and tee us off. Give us your one game from this season that stood out to you about Jabari.
Yeah, so the one game, it is a loss on the Rockets, but it's the game in Atlanta where Jabari Smith scored 34 points, 13 rebounds, and I believe 4 blocks. Just an incredible display of offense by Jabari Smith. And most of that, and what I like about that game, though, is he flashed all of the different ways that Jabari can contribute offensively. And I think that is the beauty of Jabari's game. He can be versatile and contribute offensively in so many different ways that there will always be opportunities for him to get points within a system. Whether it be the ultimate release valve in that game, they were double teaming Alperen Sengun very hard, and he was finding Jabari Smith, and he was knocking down threes at an elite level. He also got some really good tough rebounds and putbacks. There's a lot of toughness, I think, in Jabari's game. He just doesn't have the strength to bring it out right now. And in that game, I thought he had some really tough rebounds and putbacks. He used his energy, not just waiting for guys to make plays for him, but going out and getting plays, getting on the boards, getting some easy putback opportunities. And then he had a couple mid-range isolation plays. So I thought it was a real good encompass of all of Jabari's game. And it was within the flow of the offense with Jalen and Alperen Sengun. And it is the future of how we see Jabari reach some of that star potential in combination with the other young players and their potential as well.
I like that. That's a great pick. And I think that might have been the only I think that was the only game this season that Jabari went for 30 plus too. Yeah. So, which is weird because I feel like he had, and again, I'm going off rip here. I feel like maybe he had a couple 30 games, or was that, did he have a couple 30 games this rookie, or was it 28 was the season?
I didn't in depth look hard, but when I looked at it, it wasn't many. It was a couple 20-point games. It's a nice match.
There it is. Yeah. So again, he's not one of those guys that you think of as like a super crazy high volume scorer, but he can have his moments where I think he routinely hit like the that 18 to 22, 23 point range a lot more consistently this year than he did his rookie season for sure. And the shooting was a big part of that. My game, I went with one that stood out for Jabari's defense, and I went with so my game was also a loss, unfortunately. I guess we're two peas in a pod there. But I went with the first game against the Clippers way early on this season. So it was right after the Rockets reeled off that 6-game win streak. They had just beaten the Nuggets, and then they flew out west, right? They had their out west series of games against the Clippers, then they did the Lakers, and then they played the Warriors, and they lost all three. There was a terrible West Coast swing. But that game against the Clippers, they only lost by 6. And in that game, I thought that was the first game this season where like Jabari, it felt like he really leveled up defensively. Where, right, the Clippers, that was also the first game because the Clippers reeled off a bunch of losses with James Harden in the lineup, and so the Clippers looked like a disaster fest. That was the first game that they brought Russ off the bench. So in that game, right, the Rockets were switching everything 1 through 4. They weren't switching when Sengun was on the court or at the 5. But they were constantly switching, and there were multiple possessions throughout the course of that game where Jabari would wind up checking on a given possession. He would spend some time on Harden, spend some time on PG, then Kawhi, and it was really that game where it kind of opened my eyes to think, man, like, okay, this is the version of defense that Jabari can provide, where he's switching on to 3 very different types of players, and actually holding his own and doing a really good job. I think that game, PG was held to like 8 of 22 shooting overall. Kawhi had a decent game. James Harden actually had a pretty strong game, 8 of 11, but it felt like Jabari really made all of them work. That was my memory from that game, and that's why when I was thinking about what game stood out to me this season was even though they lost that game, I walked away thinking, wow, Jabari is a much improved defender this year, because last year those guys would have each taken their turns and had their way with him, and it would have been filthy. This year he was actually holding his own. He was moving his feet really well on the perimeter. He was using his length to contest. A lot of great stuff came out of that game for me. So that was going to be my game of the year for him. Give me your one play for Jabari Smith Jr.
Okay, so I decided to pick for my one play. It's a play from the Wizards game. And I know what you guys are thinking. Wizards are a terrible team, right? Right. So, yeah. But what's important about this play is when we were talking about earlier, what does a shot creating Jabari Smith looks like? It looks like this play from this Wizards game. And and what's great about this play is it incorporates the footwork and the mid-post acumen that we were talking about early in the pod when we topped LaMarcus Aldridge, Kobe, and Kawhi Leonard. And what actually happens is he establishes his work early, has this elbow post call in, and once he catches the ball in the post, he immediately rips through, faces up. He spins into a face up, pivots into a face up, and rips through into a pound dribble as if he's going to drive right baseline, right? And instead of actually driving baseline, he pounds dribble into a dream shake where he half spins back to the other side, shimmies, and come back over for a beautiful mid-range jump shot that he ices. I mean, that is incredible footwork. Not everybody can do those type of things. And Jabari Smith actually displayed that, what it looks like for him to be a shot creator on a daily basis. Those are the type of plays that we want to see from Jabari Smith moving forward as he begins to grow his game and become a shot creator. And those are the things that I think he can do consistently over and over again.
First of all, I love that pick. I remember when he busted out that Dream Shake live, and I thought to myself, that might be the most fluid that I've ever seen Jabari pull out a move. Because again, there was something like he looked a little like his rookie year, right? Looked a little stiff, a little robotic at times. It really did feel like this year we talked about like him doing like the off-season yoga and everything, how that really helped, helped him stay limber, a little bit more flexible, him really working on his core. We've talked before here on the pod about him getting lower on his dribble and being more in control there. And that move really kind of gave you that little bit of a glimpse of like, man, if you gave Jabari some consistent post-ups and kind of got him into the rhythm and stuff, like if he can unlock that version of his game a little bit more often, that could be some really exciting stuff to work with, right? That's an elite play finisher, which is what we've been talking about this whole episode. I love that pick. I'm going to go with, I was torn between a couple different plays. He had a really great defensive possession against DeMar DeRozan at the end of regulation against the Bulls back in January. The Rockets lost that game, but I thought it was a great defensive play to put the clamps on DeRozan. One of the best clutch players in the NBA, gets to his spots on the floor. I thought it was a great job by Jabari not to concede ground and let DeMar kind of work him. He didn't fall for the pump fakes, all that. But Madison, how can we not go, like, for me, because it happened not once but twice, the free throws at the end of the Spurs game. So take your pick. You can either do the Spurs game or you can do the Mavs game at the end of the season. But the missed free throws that literally cost the Rockets on two separate occasions, games that they absolutely could have put away, could have put at arm's distance. And if we're talking about those two wins, then we're possibly talking about the Rockets being in the NBA postseason, right? Like being in the play-in tournament. Like that's two more wins that you could have had. So I have to highlight those. We've talked about it in a couple other different episodes when we talked about it a little bit with Alperen and Sengun, right? Talking about, lock him and Jabari in a gym all summer, make them get 10,000 free throws up each every day, all summer. No, but yeah, I'm going to go with that. It sucks to be like a Debbie Downer and be like, and pick a play that's that damning, especially because he did have such a good season, but it's an important part of his game that he's going to have to figure out as ice in his veins as he's been hitting big shots. Like he hit the massive shot against the OKC Thunder. He's hit big shots before in his career. I don't know if it's a mental thing being at the free throw line. I don't know if it's nerves, whatever. Could just be flat out free throw percentage. Although she shot 81% from the line for the season. So it's good percentage. I got to get that part figured out, right? So that's going to be my one play. I'll just take your pick. It could be either the Spurs game or it could be the Mavericks game, but that is my one play for Jabari Smith Jr.
My one play is actually kind of crazy because it kind of, one number. Right. Yeah. So one number actually kind of already got teased earlier. And it's actually two numbers. And let's see if Jackson, you should know what these numbers are. Let's see if you can guess them. Ooh. Okay. The first number is 30. Okay. And the second number is 36.
Oh yeah, this is easy. We talked about this earlier. Yeah.
I'm sorry. We talked about this early, but if you don't know, this is the 3-point percentage of Jabari Smith in his rookie year, 30%, and 36% this year. And how much of a big difference, even though we can go across the numbers across the board, right? But how much of a difference that makes in a season when you are the ultimate release valve, right? We are now a winning team, and a lot of that is because of the versatility of Jabari Smith and him being able to shoot 36%. And having a 6% increase in your three-point jump shot is an incredible increase in one season. And I just like to say, when these guys are on track developmental wise, this is what I'm talking about. That is the type of improvement that we want to see from Jabari Smith. And if we can get another pseudo leap in that 3-point percentage, if we can get it up to 38 to 40 just next year, I think we'll see Jabari Smith get a lot more plays drawn up for him because he will be doing what we ask him to do, the smaller things at a high enough level where it will warrant more plays and more things drawn up for him. That's when I think we'll start to see more plays drawn up for him as downscreen to take some threes. Once he becomes an excellent 40% on good volume, I think it'll be great. And I think he's already a decent volume. We want to get him up to 6 to 7, but he's already shooting about 5 threes a game. So I think that's one of the biggest parts of his game that makes him such a versatile player. And as you were saying, you don't think he should be running off screens like Klay Thompson. Well, he doesn't have to. He can just do simple movement down screens. And if a center is guarding him, it's going to be a lot harder for a center to fight across screens than a guard. And so that's why we want to get him open in those ways.
I like that. And all I'm going to say is if you really wanted to throw me a curveball, you could have gone with like 6 as your number or something, or 6.5 if you really want to give him the half a percentage credit as well. Yeah. And that would have thrown me off. That would have spiced it up a little bit more. But I like that. That was an important number, right? Arguably the most important number.
It really was.
From Jabari's season. I went with 19. And mine's a really niche number, so I don't think you're going to be able to figure out what 19 is, but...
Hold on, can I guess?
Sure, yeah, go for it.
19 games with over 20?
Not quite. It was 19 games, but you're not going to get the stat.
Oh, is it rebounds? No.
It is rebounds. You're getting warmer. You're very close. 19 games, rebounds. You want to finish the puzzle?
15, over 15?
No.
Oh.
He did not. I wish he had not. If he had,
oh no, that was not. It was over. It was like over 12.
15,
it was
not quite.
It was a stretch. It was a stretch where he had like this incredible rebounding stretch.
He had a monster rebounding stretch. Yes. My number's actually the opposite direction of that. He had 19 games with 5 or fewer rebounds this season.
Oh, that's so good.
That's to me, for a guy who's 6'11", 7 foot, for a guy who played a quarter of the season as your starting center, that to me is just not acceptable. Like for as good, and look, there were stretches, and here's the crazy part. It's not like Jabari has always been, the most he's going to rack up is 7 or 8 boards where you're like, oh, okay, if he's at, whatever, 5 or fewer, that's normal for him. No, we've seen games where he gets big, where he plays like a man and he goes in there and I don't know if it's a mental thing. I don't know if it's an energy thing. We can maybe chalk some of it up to help, right? He had like the ankle issue. Like, I don't know what it is or was, but if Jabari can just be more consistent with his effort on the glass, I think it completely changes his outlook as a player, because I do think there's a level of, if you've got your Alperen Sengun in the middle, who we talked about Alperen Sengun and his need to improve his rebounding in his recap episode. But I just think that there's no excuse for when you're the tallest or one of the tallest guys on the floor to walk away with, a handful of rebounds from a specific game. The one argument that I'll hear in favor of it, or as a defense possibly, right, is the Rockets do a lot of switching, especially, once he became, the full-time 5-man and they were switching everything 1 through 5. I understand there's going to be possessions where you're maybe out of position, you're not down low, you're not in position to get some of those rebounds. Sure. But I still think there's no way that over the course of a 48-minute game, to walk away with 2 rebounds, 3 rebounds, 4 rebounds, that's just not enough. You haven't been doing enough work on the glass. And I know that there have been stretches this past season where Jabari almost took it personally, or where Ime Udoka called out their lack of rebounding and called out the whole team. And then when that happened, right, we saw Jalen focus more on the glass. We saw Sengun do it. We saw Jabari do it. This comes down to one of those, he's a young player. Consistency is a thing for young guys. We know that he can be a monster on the glass, and that in and of itself is incredibly exciting, right? To see him have these games where he has 12, 13, 15 rebounds, whatever. I'm not asking him to be a 15 rebound monster every night, but just, I think future 2010 is definitely in the cards for Jabari Smith Jr. So that's, I had to go with something that I tried to work a little outside the box on that one. But I'm impressed you got the 19, figured out it was games, and then figured out it was rebounds. I'm glad we almost had it figured out. All right, now's the point where we do our drum roll and we get to his season grade. I'll let you go ahead and tackle it first, Madison. What season grade are you giving Jabari?
For the season grade, I think I'll give him a B minus, a solid 80. All right. I like to give actual numbers. I give him a B minus because Jabari, I think he did what he was supposed to do, but he didn't do anything more than what he was supposed to do. It's like when you come and you do just the bare minimum of what's asked for you. Right now, that's fine because it's an improvement. Well, we ask you to come in and improve, and as you chip away, you get better and better. So I'm completely fine. A B is more than passing, right? But I think it's time for Jabari to start really becoming everyday impact player. You talked about the consistency on the boards. That consistency came in a lot of different areas. The consistency with free throw shooting, the consistency with defensive awareness, the consistency with defensive toughness. We talked about the Kawhi game, where he let Kawhi hit dagger shots on him. You know what I mean? Just not being aggressive enough. And to me, it's a consistency of toughness that we want to see more of Jabari, because I think that is the key to becoming consistent in these other areas, because we know that he is a tough player, but that consistency wanes. So I'm going to give him a B for those reasons. He's a young player and consistency. B minus. Yes, B minus.
Okay. I'm hovering right there between B minus and a B. I'm really impressed with it felt like he had kind of growth across the board this year. It didn't really feel, I think the biggest thing is it didn't feel like he regressed in any capacity, right? It felt like a strong, after what was a disappointment. Granted, bar was set kind of pretty low after the bad rookie year, but at the same time, to play on a team that won 41 games, to play a significant role, to be asked to do different things, the monumental increase in shooting percentage was easily the most impressive, piece of his second year. So I'm gonna go with a flat B, I guess, right there, 84, 85, middle of the pack. Because I would argue that even though we're ready for Jabari to see him maybe start doing more, I don't think he was given maybe enough opportunity to try and do more this year. I don't want to penalize him for that, because I feel like he just wasn't given necessarily the same rope or the same ability or opportunity to do as much as, say, Sengun was or Jalen was this season, right? This season really felt like a lot of, let's see if our two, star level prospects can elevate their game, become the stars that we want them to become, and the other players kind of fit into their roles how they needed to, right? Like, again, Thompson, you could make the argument that they should have put the ball in his hands more and let him run some of the offense and let him do what he was comfortable doing with all his time at OTE and having the ball in his hands, all that. I'm just saying, like, because that's what he had done up to his career, and that's what you're envisioning for a long-term star level of Thompson to do. He wasn't able to do that because guess what? Fred VanVleet and Jalen Green were handling the ball, right? So he had found other ways to be effective. So I think that Jabari did really good with what he was given to work with this season. So I'll go with a flat B for his grade. But we want to know what you would grade Jabari Smith Jr.'s season. How do you feel about his past campaign with the Houston Rockets? Let us know all your thoughts in the YouTube comments. Madison, you know the drill. Let everybody know to track you down at.
Yeah, come track me down at X or Twitter at Madman Leaks. Love to talk Rockets basketball.
But that's going to do it for another edition of Locked On Rockets. As always, thank you so much for checking out the show. If you haven't done so yet, please consider subscribing wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Rockets. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And we look forward to having you back right here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.